There you go. Are we live?
Yes.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode with Keyrock. Thank you very much for your time. Today we're going to be discussing the topic of stable coins, adoption of stable coins, and how they're used to generate revenue within the DeFi ecosystem. So today we have with us Dominic, Jacob, and Mark. Mark actually will be joining shortly. Uh, Dominic is a DeFi ecosystem lead at Paxos. Jacob is the director of growth at OpenEden, and Mark, a core contributor at Kamino. So definitely three great actors in the space, active both on the stablecoin issuance as well as the DeFi protocol in the ecosystem. So welcome to the space, guys. If you want to give a quick word about yourself, that'd be brilliant. Well, Jacob, if you want to get started.
Yeah, sure. First and foremost, I think thank you so much, Keyrock, for the invitation. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
So I'm Jacob. I'm the director of growth at OpenEden. So for those of you who do not know, OpenEden is actually a RWA tokenization platform. We actually operate through our regulated entities in the BVI and the Bermuda to kind of provide secure, transparent, and compliant on-chain access to tokenized RWA. So we are the team behind T-Bill, the first tokenized US treasury fund. And some of the key highlights is that we are actually the first tokenized product to have received a Moody's investment grade rating. And recently we actually launched our USDO product, which is the world's first regulated yield-bearing stablecoin, fully backed by tokenized treasuries.
Thank you very much for that, Jacob. What about you, Dominic?
Yeah, hey everybody. I'm Dominic Niolu. I'm the DeFi ecosystem lead at Paxos. I think most people probably know who Paxos is by now, but we're the infrastructure provider and issuer of multiple products in the space. Most recently, we launched USDG, and I think Paxos is probably one of the oldest products as well, gold backed, and have USDL, a yield-bearing stablecoin as well.
Fantastic, thank you for that. Mark?
Hey everyone, Mark here from Kamino. We're doing DeFi in Solana and especially focused on trading strategies on DEXes, with a big focus on stablecoins. And the biggest part is credit marketplace, so borrowing and lending. And we're working with Dominic and Paxos as well as multiple other token issuers, serving crypto assets, increasingly RWAs, and currently have about 4 billion assets supplied, and looking forward to the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mark. Well, so to get started with discussion, guys, so at Keyrock we've been working on building a report about the role of stable coins in the DeFi ecosystem and the overall digital asset industry. The report is going to come out next week, but there's already some things that we started to see in the data that are very interesting. Maybe you guys have more insight into why this is happening than us. And so one of the things that we've seen, or that we started to try to track, was how much of the revenue of protocols such as Kamino are related to stablecoin activities. And we found something very interesting, which is that the volatility related to stablecoin revenue has shifted substantially over the years, where at the at the beginning of 2021, the DeFi protocols had a amount of stablecoin yield that was very small, starting at around 3%, where majority of the revenue accrual on chain came from non-stablecoin activities that actually spiked all the way up to 35% a couple of years later. But then it again went down to almost the same level, going down to 4% in June of 2024. But since then, and I guess you guys can probably attest to that, we have seen a remarkable rebound of the stablecoin activity, and especially the revenue generated from stablecoins, to a year-to-date high of 30.8%. And so more details of these are going to be coming in our report. But basically, we are a little bit on a high note, where stablecoins are generating around 30% of the revenue of DeFi protocols out there across the market. And so to kick it off with that, I mean, why do you think that's happening, and how are protocols really generating revenue from stablecoins today in this market? Who wants to take it off?
I guess I can take that one. Yeah, Kamino's revenue, especially if we look at the borrow lend side, stables is a key contributor of revenue together with Sol, and the biggest revenue generating tokens are those that have strong borrow demand. So we on Kamino, there's around $1.5 billion worth of assets borrowed, and stablecoins contributes to, I don't even have the exact numbers, but I think around half of that. So yeah, I mean, we've seen a big growth of borrow demand over the past year as Kamino's grown and Solana DeFi has grown, and much of that has been about leveraging up crypto assets, and stablecoins is the main use case for this.
How do you guys look at that at Kamino? I mean, is that something good or bad? Does that mean that the industry is becoming more mature, or does that mean that people have less confidence in the digital assets and therefore they're just using DeFi for stablecoins?
Well, I think it's shown an increase in the trust of on-chain trading, the growth in our case of Solana DeFi and interesting assets on Solana, and that trend's continuing. And we're kind of moving now from these popular DeFi ecosystems from trading and leveraging crypto native assets. So let's take Sol being the big native one on Solana. And a year or so, or a bit longer, it was really Sol plus other native assets. Over the past year, we've seen a big growth of Bitcoin, which in essence is like an RWA. You know, we're trading the value of a token which is not living native on Solana. And we're seeing a big explosion of really what the classic RWAs, which people are thinking of for tokenized securities, tokenized private credit, and the big play there is to get credit on them. So yeah, we continue to see strong revenue growth, and it's all intertwined with the assets on chain that users are looking to lever up. So.
Absolutely. I would imagine, Dominic, from your side, you should be seeing that demand as well in terms of the amount of stable coins that are being issued, correct?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it kind of represents, if anything, I mean, I think it can represent even confidence in digital native assets as well, because there's going to be an increase in borrowing against those assets when the market's doing well and people think things are going well. But it also represents more maturity, if we're talking Solana specific in the Solana ecosystem, because there are so many other asset types coming online now. I think last week Apollo announced ACRED, which is going to be all over Solana DeFi in the next few months or so. And in the past years, I think like you never would have seen that type of product actually interacting directly with a protocol like Kamino.
Yeah, absolutely. And touching upon also what OpenEden is doing now, there is a lot of I would call it like marketing around what is a stablecoin, correct? And is a stablecoin an asset that is considered to be risk-free or any plus a yield, or just the underlying base dollar on it, correct? And I guess at OpenEden you guys work a lot on issuing assets which are we'll consider this a pseudo stablecoin, correct? What's your take on their role and how these assets should be used compared to, I would say, a pure stablecoin that does not have yield?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question. I think first and foremost, a stablecoin itself has to be stable and safe. So I think having a stablecoin to be fully regulated is extremely important. And at the same time, the stablecoin has to be bankruptcy remote. So what does that mean? It actually means that if, let's say, if the issuer entity actually goes bankrupt, there is no way that the issuer can actually touch the reserve assets, which are actually the customer's assets. So that's the first point I'd like to address. And then on the topic of yield bearing, so essentially, most stablecoins right now today, they are actually very passive. They hold value, but they don't actually create it. So what we are trying to change with yield-bearing assets like USDO is that we are trying to embed the native real-world yield, and then we kind of turn stablecoins into a more productive collateral that can be used on Kamino, that actually contributes more directly to protocol revenue. And I think as more and more adoption goes to, I would say, yield-bearing stablecoins, this will actually increase the kind of trend that we have been seeing with stablecoins, and stablecoin will be a larger percentage of the kind of revenue that DeFi generates.
Where is the line where we should consider something a stablecoin or not, right? Where do we go from saying something is actually a risk asset, which is just a tokenized fund stripped from its yield, compared to stablecoin, right? Where is the line in your point of view?
So to be honest, I think within the industry, it seems like every issuer has a different line. For us, the line is clear. Is that we are fully regulated, we are fully bankruptcy remote, and then all of the on-chain reserves are completely transparent in real time. So there's no questions asked where your funds are. And for us, that's where the line is to really provide a secure, transparent, and compliant on-chain access to RWA.
Interesting. What about you, Mark?
We aim to live it. Sorry?
What about you, Mark? I mean, from a point of view of like it's Kamino, you get probably approached by every single stablecoin issuer or pseudo stablecoin issuer out there requesting for their asset to be available for collateral. What's your view on this? I mean, like, what characteristics do you think an asset should have for it to be considered a stablecoin compared to a risk asset that is, hidden?
Yeah. Well, it's important. I mean, if we look broadly at a stablecoin, I divide it into the models that we've seen over recent years, and that could broadly be categorized as like your fiat-backed, the kind of centralized models, such as USDG, USDC, Tether, so cash or equivalents backed, and then your crypto backed, often the CDP models like Maker, Liquidity, and so on. And it is important, the stable coins and the stable coins, and there's been some very well documented cases of stablecoins which have had epic failures and depegs and so on. So yeah, if we're going to, as a protocol, get involved in listing something, we do our due diligence and understand that, but ultimately, those who are participating, getting involved with them, need to be aware of what kind of models there are. I personally draw a distinction between these stable coins, which should always be, and let's say, pegged to a fiat currency like the dollar or the euro, as we've now got on Kamino, and actually the yield stables, which really are more representative of a money market fund, because lots of them actually the price doesn't stay at, in the case of dollars, it doesn't stay at $1 in most cases. So the price is just going to increase over time. Let's take USDY from Ondo, right? It's named like a dollar, but the price of that now is about $1.09, I think. So yeah, it basically has a NAV and a profile which is unlike a stable coin, other than being tied to money market.
USD, should it be allowed to be called USD something?
I think it doesn't necessarily do any harm, but it's important that they're positioned appropriately.
Absolutely. Maybe, like taking that into consideration, one of the things that we don't know is how is this going to play out in terms of adoption, correct? Are people going to move majority of their capital into yield-bearing assets? Are those assets going to be the predominant form of collateral for trading on any kind of protocols, perps, etc.? Where do you guys think this is going? I mean, how does the world look in a year from now? Maybe Dominic, you can elaborate on it, as you guys are issuer of a stable coin. Where is the ecosystem evolving towards?
I think it depends really on like the user, to be honest. Like I think and like what individual goals are, because I think a yield-bearing stable can be great, but it's not, depending on how it's set up. Like if it's a rebasing token, for example, like it's actually a lot harder to do anything with, because a lot of protocols, like just at the technical level, might not support that. And if you wrap it, you end up with an asset like Mark just described, where it's ever increasing in value. So it doesn't, like, it kind of ends up not being a stable coin in some ways, but it's still like a risk off asset in a sense. But at the same time, I think we'll see more creative CDP type stable coins, or like I think recently I heard about someone issuing an over collateralized like Bitcoin backed stable coin that might be well adopted in the future, some iteration of that. So I think we're going to continue to see really creative ideas coming out. Yeah, I think in a nutshell, I think it just depends on like what the user really wants to be doing.
Do you think the trend would go more towards the yield-bearing assets being used as collateral moving forward, or you think there's a space still where those assets are not considered qualitative enough to be accepted in the majority of the on-chain trading platforms as the collateral asset?
Yeah, I mean, they could certainly be collateral assets. I just think it's less so that they would be used as borrowed assets, because like the benefit that they bring is kind of like mitigated as soon as you borrow it, right? You're going to either end up owing more or something like that. It's going to be less applications for the asset. So if you're collateralizing Bitcoin, you're probably going to want an actual stable you can go run whatever strategy without the extra hair on it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Dominic, and it's often overlooked that there's many people that have this thesis that dollars over time, as a result of tokenized money market funds, will all be yield bearing, because hey, why not, right? Why hold something that's worth $1 if you can hold something that's worth $1 plus yield? But actually, the dollar, and I'm broadly saying, the fiat currencies, they're used as transaction currencies. So if you're holding something, then yes, some yield is great. But the huge use case is paying for something, is borrowing. Credit is huge, and I don't want to pay the interest rate plus another 5% or 4%. So I want to borrow, for example, USDG, where if I borrow $10, I owe again $10 plus interest. So there's absolutely a world where these need to coexist, and the vanilla stablecoin absolutely will be continuing to grow and thrive.
What about you, Jacob? I guess would you agree or disagree with that statement, considering you guys are issuing a yield-bearing asset?
So I do agree to some extent, but if you look at the really vanilla kind of stable coins, definitely I think in terms of the market leader, we are talking about USDT, USDC. But one key reason why they actually had such dominance was mainly because they were kind of already liquid before even DeFi existed. For USDT, they were the first major stablecoin. They gained adoption on Bitfinex first, and then followed by Binance, and then USDC came along, backed by Circle and Coinbase. So there has been instances where USDC and USDT did depeg, and despite its controversy over reserves during the bear market, the COVID crash, it did prove its resilience. So definitely, I think to some extent, I do agree with Mark and that the vanilla stablecoins are definitely here to stay. But I think where we're coming from is that we are trying to offer an option where users in DeFi specifically, they can use a stablecoin that is highly capital efficient. They do not have to worry about losing out on additional yield, or in some sense, when we provide our capital to USDT or to Tether, they're actually using those assets to earn a revenue, and those are through T-bills anyway. So by giving that profit back to users is essentially what we're trying to do, and offer both retail and institutional users a highly capital efficient way to participate in crypto, and specifically in DeFi as well.
That's super interesting, actually. I mean, I think a lot of things can come out of that. Like one of the things that is, I would say, interesting to understand more in depth is you probably have a lot of analytics on where are people using your stablecoin, the yield-bearing stablecoin. I don't know if you could share a little bit about how much of it is already used for settlements and transactional utility, which is, I guess, where it would compete with a traditional stablecoin compared to just being held as in a wallet as collateral passively.
So at least for OpenEden, when we launched USDO, we actually launched it with a points program, and this points program actually is heavily tied to the DeFi integrations that we have already completed. So I would say right now, at least if I have to make like an intelligent guess, probably 80 to 90% of USDO is actually on DeFi protocols. So I'm just sharing some interesting facts. We actually do have like a curve pool of around 40 million in TVL. So what that means is that retail users can easily kind of access USDO even if they are not KYC or onboarded with OpenEden. And then we are also the largest community market on Bendo. I think the last I checked was around 160 million in TVL. So I would say right now, a very large percentage of USDO is still integrated on DeFi, but the real use case, as I really agree with you, is really for settlement, for real-time transactions, and this is something that we would like to pursue even beyond DeFi. And right now, I think we are actually speaking to the right partners to make that happen, hopefully in the near term.
But what about today? Is it already the case? Do you already see some high percentage of the asset being used for that, or at the moment is really just predominantly the DeFi utility? Yeah.
So right now, I would say it's predominantly in DeFi. We are not really seeing a lot of, for instance, like payments use cases right now.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Maybe coming back to Mark, so we were wondering if you could share a little bit about the relationship between the stablecoin issuers and the protocols. Like we know you guys are ultimately partners, and you work together on jointly building offering for the market. And I think it would be very interesting for the audience to understand a bit better how does those collaborations work, and what are the type of synergies that stablecoin issuers are working on right now with the DeFi protocols, especially money market protocols are the predominant partner of stablecoin issuers.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can refer to a good example with Paxos at the moment. So with USDG, obviously not first to market with a stablecoin, but we as a marketplace want to support the market to play out, and especially with Paxos, who has a long pedigree in issuing stablecoins, yeah, we've teamed up to put our heads together about where can USDG play a role in Solana DeFi, how can Kamino support that, and then enabling interesting use cases for users to get involved. And really then it's about, you know, Kamino not necessarily picking the winner of every token, but supporting as many interesting topics as possible. And the credit use case is a big one. We also need to look about on-chain liquidity, because borrowing and lending can't work and without the liquidity for swapping in and out. So yeah, we've been working together on how can we grow on-chain liquidity for USDG, how can we enable interesting borrowing and lending use cases. And you know, this thing, it doesn't happen overnight. So we've been going a couple of months now. We've got USDG in a couple of markets already on Kamino, and that will continue to grow. Now we shipped Kamino V2 last week, and there's a bunch more markets about to drop. And yeah, USDG is going to feature there. So that's broadly, yeah, the journey that we go on, and it's collaboration to facilitate DeFi utility for new tokens.
So you don't have favorites?
Apart from Paxos, of course. No, but no, I mean, I think we love working with credible teams and those who are excited about doing good things, especially in Solana on-chain trading. So we have you know, many friends and collaborators, but obviously meeting the high standards that we like to adhere by, and Paxos is one of them. So stoked to work together.
So what is the process for a stable coin to be able to get listed at Kamino? Do they just need to know you, or there are some requirements, some things that you don't know?
No. So as I said, I mean, there's a variety of factors, and the biggest overriding one is risk, and by that I mean a multifaceted approach to how we think about risk. And we look at everything from what's the issuance model, who's the team, technical standards followed, through to approach to liquidity, right? Because if we were to go, you know, feet first into scaling up hugely on lending, but as I mentioned, there's not the on-chain liquidity to support a healthy market, then we wouldn't be listing, or we wouldn't be, or we basically wouldn't be able to scale up. So yeah, we're looking at economic aspects, we're looking at technical security, team credibility, and also market demand, right? So many of the tokens that have done well in Solana DeFi, it's not because Kamino is listing them or pushing them, but they have a strong community who are interested in that token for various reasons. So yeah, it's pretty multifaceted, and you know, buying me a glass of wine at the conference would be a nice gesture, but it wouldn't influence the Kamino onboarding process.
I think God you said that. For a second, I thought you were gonna say, but that was the key to get.
No, and I'm certainly not the key to Kamino. Just a contributor.
That's good. That's good. Dominic, what about from your side? I mean, like, I guess for you, the question would be the opposite, which is how do you go about building liquidity and a community on, you know, when you decide, okay, we're gonna go after Solana and really build, you know, our stable coin there. How do you go about that process, and you know, what key learnings you had from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think choosing, so I mean, first of all, like USDG and most of our products always have kind of a multi-chain approach. But I mean, in Solana specifically, it's like outside of Ethereum, even compared to any of like the L2s, right? Like that's the place to be. I think both from kind of like a growth potential perspective, as well as like just like the user experience and kind of like utility that it can enable, given just kind of like the economics of using that chain. But when it comes to protocols and like how we would look at them in terms of building out, what we want which is more AUC, more market cap wherever we go. It's really kind of a symbiotic relationship, and the approach is always, you have to have, as Mark said, kind of baseline liquidity to interact with anything, just because users have to be able to access you somewhere. And to facilitate most DeFi protocols, you need a method of like, liquidation if you're talking about something like Kamino. So it's going to pretty much always center around DEX liquidity to a degree. But then when we go to a lending market, right, how do you build up supply and demand? And it's like a complex series of incentive mechanisms. So it's never like, we're not just addressing Kamino in a vacuum. For example, we're doing things outside of Kamino that drive borrow demand for our assets, so that you could go, you would want to go pick up USDG over USDC, which is largely the incumbent anywhere we go, and give them a real reason to use us, right? So that could be anything from, establishing a automated like yield strategy through a looping vault, or making us available in perps, or anything like that. Conversely, like
yourself go and make sure that you go and check, okay, can people loop my thing, and like how would they do that? You prepare everything then for people to come in and do the actual trades. So you check that the trades are
I mean, I think like the beauty of like working in DeFi and like looking at stuff on a blockchain is you can see in real time what everyone's doing, and you can just pick up the hottest trade that's out there and say, how do we replicate this with ourselves? Like, how do we make this available to someone who wants to use USDG for it? And that, that's a great way to drive some like initial demand.
I imagine you did that with Kamino, but I don't know if you can share maybe on like how successful that experience has been, and maybe what type of like uses have people given to the asset now that would integrate it into Kamino.
I mean, it's pretty early. Like, I would say it's still like very early days for us. I think Mark, you might remember better than me, but I think it was like the end of March is when we launched on Kamino. So it's been 2 months basically since then. But I think that's generally the approach, like to get stuff moving early days.
Yeah, I mean, I would add the use of DeFi comes in when there's things to do with that token. So we've been encouraging borrowing, but the growth of USDG isn't going to come if there's not further utility, because then what are you going to do if you borrow it? You're going to swap out of it and do something else. So it's this like multifaceted go to market, and that needs penetration into wider on-chain use cases, like what Dominic was talking about. So making the asset as productive as possible, and then DeFi just comes in. The DeFi primitives of collateralization, of credit, come in to support the use cases which develop on chain, right? And we've seen, if we take the sort of OG stablecoin of Tether, it's got everywhere. So collateral for trading, payments use cases, and that kind of pull demand brings in utility into DeFi with borrowing and so on. And that journey's now being gone on for USDG also, but definitely doesn't happen overnight.
You guys are working on like building all of these utility cases, correct? Like when you look at Kamino, it's a lot more than like money markets. You're trying to build a lot of other things that people can do with their assets. Maybe as you touched the topic, that the key for them to get adoption is for them to be able to be used for something, so there's a reason to borrow them, correct? What are you excited about? What are the the different primitives and innovations that are going to come to give more utility to the stable coins within the DeFi ecosystem.
I mean, I can take a stab at that. I think coming down the pipeline, there's some quite interesting models coming, broadly bridging CeFi DeFi. We can look at Athena, right, which has been a big success story, growth story of this cycle.
Is it a stable coin though?
Yeah, I wouldn't say Athena's a stable coin, but they take stable coins in to mint their token. I can't remember what they call it, like a DeFi dollar or internet bond, right? So, yeah. But stable coins are at the heart of that, because you mint this thing from stables. And while Athena's been one of the pioneers, there's also some other interesting models coming, which are also coming native on Solana, and they're doing something a bit similar, but with different custodians, different trading strategies. And what I'm excited about, if coming back to your question, is actually these growing use cases for the stablecoin economy on Solana, and then being able to get USDG reserves kind of penetrated into their operations. So as I said, it's this CeFi DeFi theme, which are relying on stablecoins moving around to power that.
What about you guys? Jacob, Dominic, want to give it a try? What's exciting? What's gonna provide more adoption for the stablecoin ecosystem moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think just in general, what's going to make stablecoins more utilitous and drive growth for us? I think maybe it's like a bit of a niche still, but RWAs are moving on chain in like a real way. I think finally, like hopefully in the next like 6 months, it's not just like another fizzle that we've seen every like 2 years since 2018 or something. Yeah. But I think we're going to see real institutions move on chain, and they're going to want to use, a trusted stable coin, something that's like safe to transact with, something that they can like compliantly hold and are just comfortable using, as well as like, whoever holds their assets too. So I think that's going to be a big growth driver going forward. And I think, more and more convergence with like the atypical crypto use cases, such as like payments or even like other retail use cases in like gaming, right? It's eventually going to touch DeFi, like everything in the background that people want to do with crypto. It really does touch DeFi, even if you're not directly talking about it. And having a stable coin that's in the right place on the platforms that are, big enough and trusted enough is going to set you up for adoption.
Last time I checked, the RWA market was something in the range of 22 billion of TVL up to date. Where do you think this goes in 12 months from now?
In 12 months, I don't know, like hopefully quadruple tillion that. Like okay, so much higher.
Right? So we get to 100. We get to 100 billion RWA market cap in the next 12 months. It could be, honestly. I mean, it's actually going quite fast.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hitting its stride, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, definitely. It seems that it just kind of like managed to get some escape velocity after a lot of years of FUD. It's exciting. What about you, Jacob? What's from your side, especially as a yield-bearing asset issuer? What do you think are the the key drivers for adoption in the coming year?
So, for my personal take is that a lot of the new wearing stables, the RWA backed stable coins, they are not battle tested yet. So my personal point of view, even though it sound a bit harsh, is that we need to maybe go into like a like a real market crash. And then if those RWA stablecoins can actually withstand those very brutal market conditions, and withstand any kind of feedback, I think this is something that will instill real confidence, especially within the retail users. And this is something that USDC, USDT did had kind of had that track record. So I believe that RWA backed stablecoins being so early in its growth right now, they need to be battle tested, and then only the ones that have the real infrastructure with being fully regulated, as I mentioned, bankruptcy remote, those are the stable coins that will really do well and will instill confidence and drive adoption within the stablecoin space.
Doomsday scenario, correct? So you're saying
Everything.
things go to shit, and that makes stablecoins awesome. It's interesting, correct? At the beginning of the session, I was just explaining that in our data analysts, they found out that indeed the portion of stablecoin revenue, which I guess you can associate to adoption of stablecoins, actually has been very volatile, most probably because of the association to boom and bust cycles and the use of stablecoins in those cycles. So you're saying here is that good for stables is bad for the rest. I mean, that's what I got, but hopefully not. Hopefully not. Hopefully good for everybody is good for stables as well. But we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I've got a thesis there, really, because I predict that if we look at DeFi, this boom and bust, right? The stable supply growth and then contraction has been very much correlated to the boom and busts of crypto assets. So let's say if we only have Sol on Kamino, because it's on Solana, when the market's hot, everyone's borrowing stables against it, levering up, and then when it's crashing, everyone's unwinding and getting liquidated and so on. But actually, the trend that's coming, we're onboarding so many new asset types, both from the Bitcoins through to tokenized funds, that there's going to be much less cyclicality. So a credit fund earning 10, 11% in from CeFi that's tokenized in DeFi, that doesn't have the boom and busts like Sol or like ETH. And with these assets collateralized, there's going to be a much more constant bid on stables, and I think that's going to be really strong driver for the continued growth of stables with less volatility of supply.
Until that money market fund goes bust.
A doomsday scenario, man.
What can go wrong, right?
Yeah, I mean, as we know, and we've been if you've been in this industry more than 2 years, it's not if but when we get these black swans. So we definitely have to be prepared for that. But investing in like OpenEden have, for example, like Paxos, having clearly defined, regulated, solid setups is setting themselves up for being able to come out of the other side of things.
Absolutely. So as you guys, you're issuing your own assets. Wanted to ask you a little bit about your opinion between the adoption and the use of USDC and USDT. I think at the moment they are the two most widely used stablecoins in the market. It looks like from the data that USDT is predominantly used for payments, and they seem to have actually dominated the payment space globally when it comes down to stablecoins. But somehow it has not been the same story when it comes down to DeFi, and majority of DeFi protocols, if you look at what's happening in Solana as well as in the EVM ecosystem, the predominant collateral asset is USDC. Why do you guys think this is the case? And what are the characteristics of one coin versus the other one that makes it more attractive for one use case compared to the other?
I think both tokens kind of benefited from a first mover advantage, like compared to all else. So I think like that's just like why in general those are the two biggest ones everywhere you look. But I think at one point in time, maybe to a degree still, USDT had like issues with trust and compliance in comparison to USDC. And when that happened, USDC just kind of took hold and people picked it up and started using it everywhere before I think USDT really had a chance. And when I think because outside of like who runs like the backing for them, there's not much difference between the logo that you see. Like they're generally like worth $1 wherever you go, and they're generally present. So why would you switch between like why would you, if you have USDC somewhere, why would you bother just going over to USDT unless you really have to use it for an application that you want? And I think that's like the fight or the battle for any new stablecoin coming in. Like you can't just be confidently worth $1 anymore. You need to do something like different or better or unique.
That trust issue doesn't seem to affect payments, correct? Which is, I would say, unexpected. Why do you think that's the case? How come that like the payments industry?
I mean,
yeah,
I guess it's like you might want to look and see like what network are those payments being made on? What are those payments for? And where are they being made geographically? But at the same time, like for payments, like you're not exposing yourself to that asset for a very long period of time if you don't want to. So you could like USDT's ubiquitous enough that you could swap it to anything else the moment you receive it. So I think that could be why.
That's true. I guess that's your plan, correct? To get ubiquitous enough so that you can swap.
I think that's every stablecoin's plan. It has to be. If you're not, like, you're limiting your own growth.
Okay, so I mean, then on that train of thought, then what advice would you give, other creators of either DeFi protocols or tokenize yield bearing instruments to gain adoption in the market and grow?
If you want like a soundbite answer, like give the user a reason that they have to have you, right? Like you can only do that. You can only use this hot app by using my stablecoin. You can only get this yield by using my stablecoin. You can only do like XYZ with me. Like you have to be unique, because otherwise you're just going to end up as there's going to be USDC, there's going to be USDT, and then you'll be number 3 or 4.
Does it come down to like then partnerships and incentives with associated use cases that enable you to like build defensibility then?
Yeah, definitely. I think like the whole crypto ecosystem, like crypto in general, anything related to blockchain tends to run like on incentives. So like how you set up, how you structure like a long-term strategy may just dictate your success.
There you go. Are you running an incentive program at the moment that you like to chill out?
I don't know if I'll shill anything, but you should definitely be picking up USDG on Solana.
Okay, great. What about you, Jacob? Same question for you.
Yeah, so I'm always been a huge user of DeFi, and now that I've dabbled into the stablecoin industry, I feel that both stablecoin and DeFi have a massive untapped potential for really deeper integration. So, if you have native U integration where protocols, like Kamino can actually natively support yield-bearing stablecoins, involves lending markets, LP pools, letting users earn, without manually compounding, I think that would be huge for the industry if more and more DeFi users actually go towards that direction. And then I think one tricky thing would be also on the cross-chain liquidity part. So having a seamless stablecoin bridging between DeFi integrations would definitely help to reduce fragmentation now that so many prominent layer 1 and layer 2s are popping up. And then having the right structure to address challenges such as defect risk when it comes to RWA, the regulatory uncertainty, and I think most importantly also over-reliance on incentives. I think this is something that stablecoin and DeFi have always faced, which is having most of the adoption driven by incentives. So the idea here is that the points program could drive short-term growth, but they are actually not that sustainable. So having the useful DeFi integrations will really help to kind of create organic demand for stablecoin in the long run.
I'm gonna take you on that, on one of the points that you made there that I thought actually is very interesting, which is the idea of using the stable coin almost as a bridging mechanism. If you have something that enables you to really move assets around, I mean, like the industry is very fragmented, you know, ecosystems. There are many different chains out there, and stable coins are also playing a little bit of a role, not only as collateral asset, but as a pivot asset, where, you know, majority of cross-chain transfers at the moment are actually stable to stable. Like, it's majority of people prefer to move stables from one chain to the other, and then start doing their specific swaps or actions within that chain. And so from what I've been getting here, what you're saying is that an interesting strategy for you as an issuer is to find a way in which you have very high quality pricing on those cross-chain transfers, such that people can view your coin as a bridging instrument, correct? How do you achieve that? Is it just putting liquidity in pools on the different chains? Do you have any specific partners that you're working on that?
So for us, we definitely work with bridging partners. I think, to be honest, Circle's CCTP for USDC, they actually set a really high standard. So I think
it's quite high standard, correct?
Yeah. So for OpenEden, definitely in the long term, that is the standard that we want to be at. And these are also the kind of partners that we'll work with to achieve that standard.
Yeah, Circle's bridging technology is actually, I think, a core reason for people to select them as a coin for DeFi, correct? Because then it really becomes a bridging technology at the moment. How feasible is for you to be able to implement something similar on the yield bearing asset that you have? Are you guys working on something like that at the moment?
So we have already enabled bridging between both Ethereum and Base. So I think what Circle has done really well is that they managed to enable such seamless bridging between so many chains that they have integrated with. And going back to kind of comparison between USDT and USDC, is that I've always believed that because of the dominance that Tether has gained by being the market leader at the very onstart, it kind of forced Circle's hand to be the de facto market leader in DeFi. And I think one area that they really have done really well was CCTV, which really propelled them to be the market leader in DeFi, because now any DeFi user can actually have a really safe way to move their stable coins, especially USDC, to different chains, and especially when there was I think 1 to 2 years back, when there were a lot of new farming opportunities on different layer 1 and layer 2s. I think that was really the key and the crucial moment where it propelled USDC to be the de facto market leader in DeFi, with the help of CCTV, of course.
Yeah, I would strongly agree with you. Actually, I think that has been a key driver. Like you said, build the utility, correct, of the assets. I don't know, Dominic, how you guys at Paxos are looking at that. I mean, are you trying to implement or going the same direction?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I mentioned before, like being kind of omnipresent, which is what Circle did, certainly makes it so you even have the opportunity to get picked up and used. So if you are where someone else isn't, like you're going to be the token that's getting adopted. But yeah, I think like we're aiming to drive utility for the asset pretty much anywhere that you see any other major stable coin.
Okay. And Mark, just to close with you on that same topic, I kind of like from the point of view of the protocol, what what advice would you give to issuers in general on how to build more utility and generate adoption? I mean, I guess from the point of view of Kamino, there are a lot of things that they can do already with your ecosystem. But what's your view? I mean, what would your advice?
Yeah, I mean, it's always, I think there's the availability part. So users should be able to easily get their hands on the token. So that's talking about native cross-chain infrastructure, easily issue on multiple chains. And then it's also about BD. I mean, we can do so much as a protocol and facilitate the the marketplaces, but really this partnership-led approach to get the token everywhere, that's driving the demand. So the demand for the token and the use cases has to go hand in hand with the DeFi utility. So being everywhere, being friends with everyone, getting protocols to build on that specific token is going to get it in the hands of more people and keep that demand flowing. So I think, yeah, the go-to-market combined with the infrastructure is important.
Absolutely. Dominic, it looks like you're going to have to buy a lot of glasses of wine for a lot of people, mate. Sorry for that. But anyway,
he's already got a lot of friends. Yeah.
It seems to me that's the conclusion, correct? I quite like also the point on on the bridging technology and the pivot utility. I think is actually quite strong. Now going to our closing remarks. So I don't know if you guys want to just give a few words on what's next for each of your respective companies. Quick words on what's exciting, what's coming, what's the next product release or iteration, and then we can close with that. Who wants to get started?
Yeah, maybe I can go first.
Go first.
So, we actually do have plans to launch on Solana, so I definitely have to buy Mark that glass of wine.
Now, there you go.
It'll definitely help with the listing process. So, yeah.
Looking forward.
Yeah, for sure. So, for us, as mentioned, we actually launched our points program. It's going to continue running. We do have very exciting announcements, partnership announcements specifically that we will be releasing to the public in the next few months. So I would strongly urge, the audience today to kind of give us a follow on Twitter, and we are going to push for more protocol integrations. OpenEden, we strongly believe that protocols should actually integrate native use pairing stablecoins like USDO into their core flows, not just for liquidity, but also to kind of align the DeFi users' incentives, and also hopefully in the future generate more sustainable revenue for protocols like Kamino as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. What about you, Dominic? What's exciting? What's the next release?
I mean, I think USDG is still hot and new, and I think it will be growing immensely over the next year. It's going to be everywhere, at least within DeFi, right? It's going to be everywhere that you interact today, and it's going to have. Can't say anything kind of like that's upcoming necessarily, but there's going to be a lot of reasons to pick it up and use it, especially long term. So if you're a protocol or another token issuer that wants to work with us, obviously reach out. And even outside of DeFi, there's a lot of exciting announcements coming up. So I would say stay tuned.
Fantastic news. So a lot of opportunities to participate in incentive programs. That's great. What about you, Mark? A lot of exciting things at Kamino. Big one.
Yeah, totally. So last week, very exciting. We shipped what we broadly called V2. That keeps the same borrow lend, which everybody knows and loves, and we've added the ability to add a ton more marketplaces, which enables us to onboard lots more interesting tokens. And we've introduced a lending vault layer, So working with a variety of top risk managers in DeFi and Vault creators who are bringing in capital to Kamino and allocating those into credit marketplaces. So you guys as users can earn interesting yields and risk-adjusted yields. So we've got USDG featured there. We've got other stables. Come and check that out and let us know what you think.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, guys. Next week, we'll be releasing the Keyrock report on the state of affairs on the stablecoins markets. Stay tuned for that. We'll be publishing it around for the community to learn more about the topic. And for you guys, thank you very much, Jacob, Dominic, Mark, for your time today. Hope to continue the collaboration. We're always very happy to collaborate and work with our partners. And thank you very much for sharing today.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.